Okay. What's the difference between living in the 90s versus now? First one is music. You know, I was about to say that. Now I could get deep into it and tell you the reason why, the music is different or whatever have you. Yes, true indeed. I can. I'm not going to go but so far. I'm just going to keep it simple. The difference is, there's a thing called artist development. There's a thing called talent. There's a thing called creativity. And overall, back in the days in the 90s, the record labels would pour money into the artists. They don't do that anymore. They don't care if you have talent. They don't care about creativity. They're not about to sit down with their artists and develop them in any type of fashion or manner. That plain and simple. What these record labels are concerned about is hits and how less amount of money that they have to spend on their artists, but how much they can make off of them. You understand? And these artists are signing record deals not knowing that they're like official slaves. Like, I ain't saying that they weren't slaves back in the 90s, but definitely these type of contracts that these kids are signing is ridiculous, like 360 deals. And you're doing everything. Most of these kids are making their own beats. They have their own studio. They're writing their own rhymes. All of that. They're creating their own merch. They got their own YouTube. But prior to the record label signing them, they had their own YouTube channel that had 200, 300,000 subscribers. They had 300,000 Instagram followers. In other words, they already had a core fan base. And the record labels know that. And they sign them over and boom, now you next thing you know, they slaves. And every damn penny that these artists these days are making, the record label gets a cut. A piece of the goddamn pie, all for nothing. And the way that you could tell that the record labels are no longer showing any type of interest or putting any type of money in towards the artist is based on the music. That's the reason why the music is garbage. Because nobody's investing inside their artists anymore. And that's the problem. That's the problem. So when you go around talk about the music is horrible and you start talking about the artists, stop talking about the artists. Start talking about the record labels that sign these artists, knowing that these artists are not ready to perform. They're not ready to put out music. The only thing that the record labels are concerned about are hits. That's it. And they don't give a damn if the kid is microwavable, you know what I'm saying, artist. Meaning that as fast as they came out, it's as fast as they're gonna fall. Get them in, oh, we used them up, get them out of here. Let's bring in another one. So the first thing is the music. You know what I'm saying? Second thing is social media. We didn't have social media. And if you want to say we did, then our social media was in the form of like magazines, like Vibe magazine, The Source, we had like, if you want to say that was social media, we had like Rap City, Yo MTV Raps, what's that dude? Donnie Simpson, you know what I'm saying? BT, the R&B joint, I forgot the name of that show. You know what I'm saying? Where different artists, R&B artists would, come up there, TLC, New Edition, Bobby Brown and the likes, but overall we didn't have Instagram, YouTube, Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook, and the likes. We didn't have that. And I'm glad that we didn't, because of the fact that look at this generation now. Look what the internet, overall, the internet has done to people. Like, let's just take away the internet. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that there's not a good side to the internet, because it is. You know, things that we didn't know. Like in the 90s, we had to go to the library to find out. We had to buy books that were worth $1,000 or more to find out the different information that now is at the tip of our fingertips. But I'm talking about the bad side. Just look at the internet. Let's just really sit here and ponder of how many deaths, how many people died based on the internet. For real. How many people got shot and killed based off some internet beef? How many people committed suicide based on what is it called? Bullying. So I'm just glad that the internet wasn't around. What I will say this. Let me take that back. It was around, but it wasn't. We didn't have access like general pop. Regular people didn't have access to it, and definitely social media wasn't around that time. You understand? Like the first time that I ever heard about like anything like towards like some social media stuff was like MySpace. Prior to that was blackplanet.com, and I think that was it. I think the first one to come, after that was Facebook, and then Twitter, and YouTube was around that time, and then Instagram. So let's move on. The music's definitely different. 2, we didn't have the internet. 3, relationships. Oh man, like, you know, back in the days in the 90s, if you liked the female, if you liked the dude, you know, you had to have game. You had to have that gift of gab. You know, you had to actually physically go up to that person and say, hey, you know, my name is such and such and such. I like you. Can I take you out? Human interaction. Relationships are boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, and wife, you know, marriage. All of this stuff had to deal with human interaction. Yes, there were introverts back then and there. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, you couldn't be no introvert if you liked someone and you really wanted to get with them. You had to go out there and make it happen. I say the only thing that was indirect, and that's when we were kids. That was like in middle school and high school, is you would write on a piece of paper, do you like me? Check the yes box or no, something like that. Other than that, we didn't have like, you know, cell phones, and you know, it was cell phones back then, but it wasn't like, you know, like it is now. You know, we had more of like the beepers, and the beepers were, you know, like the next step. Like you would get the number, and then you would beep that person, and then that person will call you back on a regular phone jack. You know what I'm saying? On a regular phone. I'm gonna get to that too, for our cell phones and house phones or whatever. You know, so we didn't have no texting or nothing like that. At least in the early part of the 90s. Now, I remember like when I got to like college in like 94, you know what I'm saying? I had got the like the Sky Pager, you know what I'm saying, where you could just text and all of that. You know what I'm saying? But prior to that, the early 90s, like from 90 on up to about 94, there was just basically like beepers and those big ass damn phones that you had to walk around with big ass battery and shit connected to it, and it's crazy, you know what I'm saying? So relationships, man, it was totally different. It was more human interaction, and it was just a beautiful thing. You know, I still have memories, you know, in my mind of when I met this particular chick. I remember, you know, it being, you know, the moon was out and the wind was blowing. It was so cinematic. You understand? The reason why I'm saying it, because like nowadays it's kind of like dry now. When you want to get into a relationship with a person, or you want to, you know, have a conversation with, it's dry as shit. You know? So relationships was totally different. There was no at that point in time, you know what I'm saying? Even though plastic surgery was out, you know what I'm saying? I think Michael Jackson was on his 8th nose job at that point in time. But for the most part, you know, general pop, you know, regular people couldn't, you know, afford to get plastic surgery. You know what I'm saying? So even now, regular people can't get plastic surgery. The way I found out how regular people were getting plastic surgery, and it bugged me out, is I was listening to this broad on YouTube, and she was talking about how she's getting, you know, all her things changed, you know what I'm saying, into a dude. And she's like, yeah, you know, I just thank God that I got Medicaid, and Medicaid covers it. And I'm like, oh, now I know. All these broke ass broads are getting all these, you know, nose jobs and all of this stuff because it's covered under Medicaid. But for the most part, nobody can afford none of that shit. So there were no fake titties. There were no fake asses. At that point in time in the 90s, there was no big tarantula eyelashes. You saw women here and there having different eye contacts, you know what I'm saying, to change their eye color. That was lame to us. You know, weaves, we were still trying to like adjust to the weave thing. So most women were wearing like real hair. You know, like the 90s was all about keeping it real. So if you got up with a broad and she had a fat ass and she had some nice ass hips and some big voluptuous titties, and that was her shit. That was hers. I don't want to like throw them under the bus, but just don't be on some real shit. White girls didn't have fat asses back then either. You know, y'all know it's like regular now, you know what I'm saying? But back in the days, white girls didn't have no flat asses. Excuse me, fat asses. All their asses was flat. For real. You know what I'm saying? White women were calling black girls that had fat asses fat. And not in a good way. Not P-H-A-T. No, F-A-T. As soon as Kim Kardashian came out with her fake ass, you would think she created fat asses. No. So, we got, I'm trying not to be, for it to be like long. We had 12 minutes. We got music, social media, relationships. What else? Oh yeah, cell phones. There were no cell phones. You know, you understand? Like the first phone that I got was AT&T, and that was in 96. Yeah, 96, and it was about this big, right? And the battery on it was like, man, you could probably talk for like 40 minutes. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no internet. It was like a green LCD light. You know what I'm saying? That's it. And the plan that I had was ridiculous. It was like 75 cents a minute, and no weekends for free. It was just crazy, man. You know what I'm saying? So back in the 90s, it wasn't no cell phones, you know what I'm saying, like that. You understand? Like how we have now. You know, there wasn't no smartphone. All our phones were dumb. You know, most of the phones that people used, you know, because most people didn't have no cell phone or no car phone at that. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, regular people, 9 to 5 working people, you know what I'm saying? They had a house phone. You know, you a beeper. They would say most drug dealers had beepers, but I had beepers, man, and I wasn't no drug dealer. I had beepers all through the 90s. You know what I'm saying? Beepers weren't that cheap. That expensive. Beepers were like, my beeper bill was like, because I had like the big fat joint. My joint was like $30 a month. But prior to that, I had the regular beeper joint, you know what I'm saying? That shit was like $10, $15 a month. For those that don't know what a beeper was or is, it's a cell phone that goes, it's a box that goes off like a cell phone. Like just imagine putting your cell phone on vibration, right? And you get a text message. That's what a beeper was. That plain and simple. You know what I'm saying? So most of the 90s we had that. And then like close to like the end, you know what I'm saying? Like around 90, 95, 96, around that time, that's when, you know, you started getting cell phones. Around 98, 99, 2000, that's when cell phones started really, really popping up like that, and everybody was getting them. And then, you know, Sprint, T-Mobile, Cricket, all of these different cell phone businesses or whatever, you know, companies, you know, they would slowly but surely like ease up on, you know, the bill. So like I had Sprint like in 2003 or 2 or something like that, and my bill was like, you know, free after 9 o'clock, and then free on the weekends, and it was like $35 a month, and I had 300 minutes. Yeah, for 300 minutes. So we had no cell phones like that. All right, let's move on. Overall, let me say this. Overall, and I'm gonna end it with this, because I could talk about, you know, clothes. I could go on and on and on. I could talk about cars. I could talk about food. I could go on and on with it, right? But for the most part, right, the overall quality of life in the 90s was way more better and different than what it is now. The reason why is because regardless of whatever you were a consumer, a customer of, companies at that point in time took great pride in their customer service, in their product. Like, I hardly hear any of these businesses nowadays say, regardless of whatever it is, the customer is always right. I used to hear that all day in the 90s. But I've never heard that shit nowadays in 2021 going on 2022. Never. For real. I remember like one point in time, I'll give you an example. I remember in Burger King, right? For those that lived in the 90s, y'all all know what the hell I'm talking about. Yo, you used to go to Burger King and it was like a restaurant, for real. You would sit down and the people would bring you your, like you would have a waitress, would bring you your tray of your food or whatever have you. You'll get, if you had kids, you know, they get the booster chair, you know, they'll get your little crown and shit on your head. They make you feel special. You ain't have to pay for condiments, none of that. Not these days. I remember Pizza Hut, most of the Pizza Huts were restaurants like. I remember going to a shitload of birthday party, pizza parties in Pizza Hut. They had arcade games in there. I remember Chuck E. Cheese. I didn't have kids back then, but I went to a lot of kiddie parties and shit back in the days. I remember Chuck E. Cheese was the shit back then. You know, there was no Netflix. You know what I'm saying? There was Blockbuster, Hollywood Videos. And every weekend, you know, my aunt, she would be the one to like come and get us for the weekends. I stayed on punishment all the time, and she knew that she knew that my mom's damn near tortured me. So she would like get me out of there, and I would go spend the night with my aunt for the weekend, and we would go to Blockbuster, and we would like, we used to get like 15, 20 goddamn videos, VHS cassette tapes. You know, yes, true indeed. You know, politics was the same. That was the only thing that didn't change. You know what I'm saying? Politics are the same. You know what I'm saying? Politics is they full of shit. You know, and there was killings and people were getting murdered and all of that stuff. At the end of the day, still, seriously, the quality of life was different in the 90s. I'm gonna end it with this. For those that are hip hop fans, I say this: our rappers weren't getting killed like that in the 90s. You'll see a whole bunch of rappers that had black eyes. That was the fashion of, you know, the 90s. You know, nowadays when people, you know, when rappers pop off their mouth about other rappers, they end up with a bullet in their head. But back in the days when rappers popped off with, you know, about other rappers, those rappers, they will come and see you at their concert and they'll fuck you up. Yeah, you got your ass beaten. You had a black eye and shit. You got stomped the fuck out. Some Gore-Tex boots, Timbs and shit. But you lived to see another goddamn day. Yeah, you know, Vibe magazine, the Source magazine, they gonna talk shit about how you got fucked up by the Wu-Tang Clan. How Raekwon knocked your punk ass out. Hey, it is what it is, but you live to see another day. Straight up. This guy Draco the kid or whatever, he gets stabbed up at his concert? Or a festival? How? That's unheard of. So yeah, man, let me say this, man, and then I'm done. Whenever you hear an old head pop off with the mouth and, you know, bitching and complaining and want to talk about how things are different and da-da-da-da-da and this and that and so forth, let me tell you something. It was, man. It was a beautiful day in time, man. Hip-hop was at its apex. It truly was the golden era. You know, back then we had, like it all, for some odd reason, came together. Like, everything came together. Like, yo, there were, at the with hip-hop being the apex at that point in time, there was just it was a shitload of black movies coming out. There was a shitload of black sitcoms out. You know, we had our own black clothing lines. I mean, it was just just amazing back then. That's all I can say, man. You know, so I hope that I, you know, gave y'all a little bit of the 90s, you know what I'm saying, and just express to you how much of it was a difference between, you know, the 90s and 2021. Other than that, my name is Langston2092. I want you to like, comment, subscribe, and definitely share this video.